Kelly Scott.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Hello there, just gone 8 minutes past 10. Welcome to your weekend this Saturday, the 28th of September. Can you believe September's nearly over? This year. 25 to 11. Now, I've got two very special guests on the show today. Well, you will definitely know one of them. If not both, it's Grandma and Grandson who have just released a podcast, and they're from right here in the Northeast. I am talking about singer Joe McElderry and his grandma Hilda, who have a brand new podcast, and it's called That's Ridiculous. Now, it's a feel-good podcast where Joe and his unstoppable 90-year-old grandma Hilda dive headfirst into the chaos of today's world, all from their garden shed in South Shields, and a genuine family bond and a relationship that spans decades apart. It's so lovely to watch or listen to on the brand new podcast, and I have them both here with me now. So welcome firstly to the show, Hilda. Can you explain a little bit about what the podcast is all about?
Well, I haven't got a clue what it's about.
But you're on it.
To me, no, I haven't got a clue. You better explain, Joe.
Right, well, basically, I think we've probably in lockdown or towards the end, Grandma kind of would spend a lot of time at our house. We were in a bubble together and stuff. And we would just kind of, as I've done for my whole life, we all come to my house. It used to be on a Friday night, when I wasn't working and things like that, when I was a lot younger. And all the family would sit round and have drinks and food. And, you've been there, Kelly. My family are very social. So I kind of started sharing little clips of just Grandma saying funny things that she's always said that she doesn't think's funny and doesn't understand why anybody else thinks they're funny. And I just started to get loads of messages off people going, oh, it reminds me of my relationship with my grandparents, or I wish I had a relationship like that with my grandparents, and please will you share more stuff like that, because it's really wholesome content. So I've kind of been looking over the years to do a podcast anyways. We've had conversations, and Gaynor, who's producing this podcast, we've kind of put our heads together for years, and we kind of tried to almost overcomplicate it a little bit, really. And then we were actually, we just need to create that Friday night feeling that we all have as a family, but just me and Grandma sitting, chatting. And that's pretty much what it is. And
what I love is it's on obviously all platforms, but people can watch it. And as someone who has had a couple of wines with you both in the past, it literally is set up the way it really happens. Oh, yeah. You were in your garden in the deer hut, which, Hilda, were you nice and comfy being there? Because you're there quite often with a cheeky whiskey, aren't you?
Yeah, often, yes.
But not normally with the cameras in your face. And now we've talked a lot about, you've been on social media a lot. A lot of the time, I think sometimes you don't even realise. Just the other day, I was watching a hack of you putting on a pair of trainers in a very special way. Do you want to explain how you put on your trainers?
Well, I was putting them on with a spoon because he didn't have a shoe on. And I can't get my trainers on unless I've got a shoe on.
So that is a brilliant hack.
But you know what? I put that online and all of the comments were like, oh my God, I do this all the time. So wise lady.
So we already know you're wise. Now, obviously on the podcast, you're going to be talking about everything, but there is something that I absolutely loved, and it was Ask Hilda. Now, I know over the years, you are great at giving advice. There's one thing that I was really laughing about. This wasn't just for the podcast. So for anyone listening, this is the conversations that you two have all the time.
Yes.
Joe, when you were asking about a bit of help with your love life, about any advice for dating. Hilda, you're not that keen to give any advice, are you?
Not really.
Why do you not want to give us advice? I don't understand that on dating.
Well, because it's your life and you have to find your own partner. I'll look 'em over when you bring them.
But you're not helping decide?
No.
All right.
But on the podcast, you have got Ask Hilda, so people have actually, from online, knew you were doing this, have put forward some kind of dilemmas. Out of all the dilemmas, has there been any funny ones that you've...
There's been some quite scandalous things, actually. But obviously, a lot of things, which is lovely, is I think we're really kind of... The podcast is, a lot of fun. But we actually talk about the kind of different generational times. So from when Grandma grew up to me growing up, and kind of looking back on and kind of comparing the difference and really kind of understanding how different things were back then to what they are now. And also with the help me Hilda's, there's a lot of stuff that Grandma's I've never even heard of any of this stuff, like dating apps.
See, that is something that you touch on in the first episode. Honestly, you've got to download it and have a listen, because the dating app thing, it's great, Hilda, finding out what it was like when you were first dating, because it was so different, wasn't it? Do you remember the first dates you ever went on?
Yes. The first date I ever went on took weeks and weeks before anyone asked you to go on a date at one time. But now it's completely different. And I was a long time picking my partner. We went out together for 4 years. And I knew he was the one. But there was no rush like there is now.
Yeah.
How do you think Joe should get a partner? Do you think he should do the apps or try and meet people in person?
Meet people in person.
It's hard though.
It
It's
is
hard
hard.
now. This is what we're trying to explain as well in the podcast, which provides a lot of comedy between us two, is how much life has now moved to the online space, you know, and how people communicate. Like we had a really good chat about, you just worked out what an email was, hadn't you?
Yeah.
But you don't want to use them.
No. No, I don't.
You don't want to text people.
No.
And I like the way you chat about as well, like the social stuff, like knowing the names of certain apps and things like
Yes.
that. So do you use any of them at all? So like,
Not really. YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll use a little bit of that. No, I don't, because half of it's rubbish.
But the interesting thing is now, obviously, Joe's a well-known singer, but, you know, you back in the day as well, in the Dolly mixtures, you've had a full career as well. How do you look at the music industry now, you know, that Joe's in?
I think it's pretty much like it was, except there's all the pitfalls that was there then, but except the technology now is much better in the music industry. And gone is the days where you went out and bought your record and came home and sat and listened to it over and over again. I mean, they go to these big concerts, they won't hear all the words of the music and where they're going. They can't go out and buy a record like they used to.
I know they sit there filming it on the phones, don't they? They don't actually watch it.
It's just to see your mobile phones now, isn't it?
So obviously, I don't want any big spoilers, but there's 10 episodes of this podcast.
Yes.
What sort of things are you talking about? Because I know you were saying when I was asking you, Hilda, what's it about? You're like, I can't remember. Can you remember much of the podcast? Or does he ask you so many questions and you're having so much of a laugh and having so much whiskey that you don't remember?
I don't have so much whiskey.
Sure does.
I don't. I've always got me measure.
And can I just confirm as well, we don't have any whiskey in the studio, I promise, bosses, if you're listening. Definitely no whiskey in the studio, I promise. We're going to have more from Joe McElderry and his iconic Grandma Hilda after this. The air raid sirens, saying that he hated them. And what was the reason that you hated them so much?
Well, I hated the air raids, obviously. But the worst thing for me, I was terrified of the earwigs in the air raid shelter. And I used to pray, don't be a raid tonight, because I was more frightened of the earwigs than the bombs.
This is what's fascinating. I think this is what's so wonderful that you're doing this, because, you know, I've not got, my grandparents are no longer with me. There's a lot of people who you sometimes, you know, don't get to spend time with people from that generation.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's great hearing you've lived through it all. Like that's why it's so good getting advice from Hilda, and that's why it's so good of having asked Hilda on the podcast, because you've lived through it all, you have seen it all and bought the t-shirt. You don't suffer fools gladly, do you, at all?
Not really.
You get the measure of people.
She says that lightly. She doesn't suffer any fools.
I know, but in my day, is it right? You're right in saying it's different now. But in my day, everyone was in the same boat.
Yeah.
Because it was during the war.
Yeah.
And the community in the way I lived was great, because we're all in the same boat. But now to me, I find it's how much money you've got's important. And it isn't really. It's important you've got enough to pay your bills and a roof over your head. That's all you need. Your health is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, do you know what? I've already had... So the first episode is out now. So if anyone wants to get it, what platforms
So
is it
it's
on?
out. It's going to be out every Wednesday. The first one's out now. You can get it where you get all your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and also the full versions are filmed, like you said, from the Deer Hut.
And we see you in your jazzy outfits.
Yeah, she's got a different outfit on every week, a
A
different
leisure suit. Yes.
Well, my leisure suit, yes. Joe calls it pyjamas, but it is a leisure suit.
Can we expect to see a theatre show with Joe McElderry and Grandma Hilda?
Well, we're having a couple of conversations about possibly doing a live show. So
That
if we
would
can
be
make that
amazing.
happen, I mean, you know, I tour a lot anyways. So it's kind of, if we were ever to do a tour, it's trying to incorporate it in that. And I don't really want to drag Grandma around. I know she does come on tour, but doing a show every night is a different level of
I've
energy.
already got an idea of a leisure suit with, like, people can buy them with Grandma Hilda on.
Well, you could have a QVC range.
Oh, imagine with rhinestones, and you can have your own spoons with Grandma Hilda on for people to put the shoes down with. Honestly,
You could sign shoe horns.
oh, that's it. Get a load of spoons, jobs are good, and get Hilda's
So
name
I
on.
hopefully we'll do a live show at some point.
And how lovely has it been to spend this time? I know you spend a lot of time together anyway, but actually sitting and doing this together, has it been enjoyable? Because you've obviously had the cameras there. We've got a Gaynor who's your producer, who's doing it all, isn't it? Isn't she? Putting it all together with the team as well.
Yeah, Chris and Grant from Wickham 89, they're the film crew. So that, but like I can't. As we go along, we've kind of filmed stuff to show you, because on the actual video footage of the episodes, the studio looks like this really like big, glamorous.
It looks huge. I thought that.
Yeah, and quite a few people, like, when we've been looking at the stuff, are like, "Oh my god, where's the studio?" And I'm like, "It's literally a shed in my back garden, like, and we're all squashed in."
Yeah.
But I think that kind of adds to the beauty of it. We're kind of talking about, you know, filming it in a studio or not filming it at all. And I kind of had this idea of, like, it should be in my house, like, because that's where all of this happens.
Yeah.
And it's the simplicity. You do hear the odd seagull, or, like, I live right near the beach. You hear the seagulls flying over. You sometimes hear a car door slamming. Like, we kind of wanted to keep that kind of simplicity and not kind of overproduce it
And
and
that's
make
why
it
it's so genuine.
glitzy and glamorous,
Yeah.
because that's not who we are.
I mean, it is obviously glitzy and glamorous because Grandma Hilda's in it, of course, with a glitz. But no, that's it. That's why I love it. And spending time with you out, you know, in general, you come across just the way you do in real life. And I think everyone's going to be so lucky to be part of it. So obviously, get listening. So the first episode was out on Wednesday. What is it? One released every week now?
One release, 10 episodes. And then we may do a little Christmas special if people are really enjoying it.
What you're missing now is Hilda's
I'm
eyebrows.
probably going to have to speak to Grandma's agent by then, because I think
it.
she's going to be too big for her boots by the end of the series.
Honestly, I'm going to be living for getting a Grandma Hilda leisure suit or glitzed up rhinestones.
Yes, that's what we need to do.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. And obviously, because it's the name of the podcast, I need to hear you say it one time, Hilda. What's the name of the podcast?
It's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, That's Ridiculous. It's definitely called That's Ridiculous. And you can watch it now on YouTube or listen where you listen to your podcast. It's all free. And like we we're just saying there's going to be a new episode every single Wednesday. If you haven't heard the first one or watched the first, definitely watch it as well, because that's watching Hilda like it was just then, her eyes rolling. It's the funniest thing. We got the latest weather on the way after ABBA and Gimme Gimme Gimme.